The message appeared on my screen at 7:42 on a quiet Tuesday evening, and the moment I realized what I had done, every drop of blood seemed to leave my face. I had meant to send a playful text to an old friend after he joked about setting me up on another terrible blind date. Instead, I accidentally sent it to my next-door neighbor, the one person I barely knew but secretly admired from a respectful distance. The text read, "If you keep smiling at me like that, I'm going to think you're trying to steal my heart." 8 minutes later, there was a knock at my front door that changed the course of my life. If stories about kindness, hope, forgiveness, compassion, and second chances mean something to you, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that may need them the most. My name is Nathan, and at 36, I had become an expert at keeping people at arm's length. I lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Franklin, Tennessee, where everyone seemed to know everyone, except me. After losing my wife, Rebecca, to a sudden illness 3 years earlier, I convinced myself that surviving was enough. My days revolved around work as an electrician, evenings were spent repairing old furniture in my garage, and weekends disappeared into silence. My cheerful neighbor, Hannah, had moved in 6 months earlier with her elderly father, Walter. She always waved whenever our paths crossed, often carrying groceries with one hand while helping her father with the other. I admired her kindness, but I never imagined speaking to her beyond simple greetings. When the knock came, panic rushed through me. I opened the door expecting anger or embarrassment. Instead, Hannah stood there holding her phone, her expression calm, almost gentle. She wasn't smiling because of the text. She looked like someone carrying a burden much heavier than an awkward mistake. Behind her eyes was exhaustion that no cheerful wave had ever revealed. She quietly explained that when she received my message, she thought perhaps it was meant for someone else. But then she admitted something unexpected. For weeks, she had noticed how lonely I seemed, just as she herself had become after leaving another state to care for her father, following his stroke. She confessed that the accidental message had simply given her the courage to knock because she desperately needed someone to help her move a heavy bookshelf before her father's physical therapist arrived the next morning. She laughed softly about the strange coincidence, and somehow that laughter erased every ounce of embarrassment I had been carrying. That evening, instead of discussing mistaken texts, we spent 2 hours moving furniture, repairing loose cabinet doors, and sharing cups of coffee, while Walter told stories about serving as a volunteer firefighter decades earlier. It was the first time in years that my house felt warmer after someone left, instead of empty air. The weeks that followed surprised me more than the accidental text itself. Hannah never tried to force friendship, yet she somehow became part of my everyday routine. Sometimes she left homemade soup on my porch, after learning I skipped dinner during busy workdays. Other times I helped repair things around her home or drove Walter to medical appointments when she couldn't leave work early. Our friendship grew naturally, built not on romance but on quiet acts of kindness that slowly repaired places inside both of us neither had spoken about. Then life tested us again. Walter suffered another health setback and required months of rehabilitation. Hannah worked 2 jobs to keep up with expenses, and the stress began wearing her down. I remembered how helpless I had felt during Rebecca's illness, and realized that this time I didn't have to stand by watching someone struggle alone. I quietly organized neighbors to prepare meals, mow their lawn, and help with transportation. No one wanted recognition. Everyone simply wanted to lift a little of the weight from one family's shoulders. Watching the neighborhood come together reminded me that compassion spreads much like light in darkness. One small act encourages another, until people who once lived as strangers become something closer to family. Walter eventually returned home stronger than anyone expected. On the afternoon, he walked from the car to his front porch without assistance. He looked at me with grateful eyes and simply nodded. Some moments don't need speeches. Months later, Hannah admitted that she had kept the accidental message on her phone, not because it was romantic, but because it reminded her that beautiful things sometimes begin with imperfect moments. I smiled, realizing that if I had never made that embarrassing mistake, I might have continued living behind walls built from grief. Before we reach the end of this story, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced an accident or unexpected moment that completely changed your life for the better? Please share your story in the comments, because your experience might encourage someone else who is watching today. On the first anniversary of Walter's recovery celebration, our neighbors gathered for a simple backyard dinner under strings of warm lights. There were no grand speeches, no dramatic proposals, and no fairy tale endings. There was only laughter, gratitude, friendship, and two people who had learned that healing often begins when we stop hiding from life. Hannah and I eventually built a future together, but what mattered most wasn't the romance. It was discovering that hope sometimes arrives disguised as a mistake, and that God's greatest blessings don't always knock on the door the way we expect. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe for more uplifting stories, and share it with someone who could use a reminder that second chances are real. Every act of support helps these messages of hope reach another family. And always remember, the moments we wish we could erase sometimes become the very moments that teach us how beautiful life can still be.